The Miami Heat were all business as they kicked off the NBA season on Monday. We give you our takeaways from Media Day, including Jimmy Butler's approach, Erik Spoelstra's starting lineup, and Tyler Herro doing whatever it takes. It's a great episode you don't want to miss on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat Media members. The best way to support the show is to leave a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. A reminder that you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, we're back from an eventful Heat Media Day where Jimmy Butler made his first comments to the media since the end of last season. Erik Spoelstra dropped some hints about the starting lineup, and Tyler Herro turned over a new leaf. So I've got 3 quotes from 3 different people that I want to get to into here, and we can kind of talk about them after that. We'll start with Jimmy Butler, who, when asked about his status with the team and the contract extension that he did not get, said this, quote, "I just want to play basketball and want to be available. Like Pat was talking about, I plan on being that and making everybody happy. I'm here, normal hair, no shenanigans." Here's a little bit more from what Jimmy had to say.
Come up and why not?
Nah, I'm good. An extension is just, a couple of dollars. I'm cool, I'm telling you. I think I've made enough. I just want to play basketball. I want to be available, like Pat was talking about. And I plan on being that. I plan on us winning a bunch of games and making everybody happy.
There's Jimmy Butler. No dreadlocks, no emo, no face piercings, no eyeliner, no painted nails, no nothing. Just him in a 22 Miami Heat jersey, cornrows, all the usual stuff, nothing out of the ordinary, saying basically towing the company line there. Like, right, I'm going to be available. I'm going to do exactly what Pat Riley asked me to do. We're going to win a bunch of games. I'm just here. Don't worry about the contract. All business, no shenanigans. What did you think from what Jimmy Butler had to say today?
It's kind of hard. I feel like I'm inclined to read something into it, and because it's Jimmy. Like, he doesn't do anything without some kind of reason or background or forethought or something like that. It's not to say that he's got an agenda or necessarily or anything like that, but he just, the things he says are intent and purposeful. And this was such a muted response. Like, I know we're all kind of like, reporters in general tend to kind of gather here and kind of froth at the mouth as he's going to drop some kind of bomb or hope for some kind of chaos that's going to lead to added clicks or views or anything like that. But this was a far, far, far departure from that, where it was just a very muted response. He was perfectly fine, late, and yet kind of an excused lateness. It wasn't his fault. It was just something that happened to do with travel. He showed up, and he didn't make a scene, didn't draw extra attention to himself. And as you said before we started recording, just gave all the right answers, towing the company line. So it's kind of hard to, I'm just going to take it at face value. That's why I'm going to choose to do that. And that's my choice, because I feel like you can read into it, or you can see if there's maybe something between the lines. And that would certainly be a possibility. But I think the intent for him is to make this season a great one, and for it to be number one on his list of when he presents it to Pat at the end of the season, go, this is why you pay me. And so I think it is very much a business-like approach. I think it is going to be a season for the ages from Jimmy Butler, and he's going to be able to carry this team to great heights. And then that's going to be reason number one why he gets that deal that he wants. So we'll see how it plays out. Like, curiously, that after months of speculation from his agent saying how much he wants this money and that that's the priority for him and that he's going to get it one way or the other, now it's all just a couple bucks, which,
right,
a couple bucks,
right, that's the part,
tens of millions of dollars. So
right,
I don't know.
That's the part I rolled my eyes at, sort of in the scrum. I was just a couple bucks, and I understand. So for the record, Jimmy Butler spent the entire media session diffusing any speculation about his status with the team, his relationship with Pat Riley or Erik Spoelstra, the wants or needs for a new contract or a long-term commitment from the organization. All these just I just want to focus on basketball. And maybe he didn't mean it. I, like you, choose to believe that he does mean it, but I don't know that it matters if he meant it because Jimmy Butler hasn't towed the company. He's not a person who tows the company line, right? If he will say whatever he wants to say, he says what's on his mind. He makes his bold declarations and voices his opinions whenever he wants. So, right or wrong to toe the company line, the fact that he's doing it is in and of itself noteworthy, whether or not he means it or not. Yeah, the dude wants another big contract. Who wouldn't, right? Like, that's fine. Like, he's not going to, he could say it's just a couple of bucks here and there and I've already made a ton in my career, but he's also not going to sign for the minimum next year, right? So that's the part I roll my eyes at. But in terms of just the overall presentation of Jimmy Butler at Media Day today, it just wasn't what we've been used to over the last couple of years. Like I said, no shenanigans, to use his words. So I think a big part of this too, just to provide a little bit more background on this, he was several hours late to Media Day. And the reason we were given, and I am choosing to believe this, I have no reason not to, put it in other words, is that he had some mechanical problems coming back from Paris with his flight. And he said in a couple times during the scrum, these last 48 hours have been, crazy, basically insinuating that the travel plans just went all wrong, that he had a hard time getting out of Paris and all these things, trying to get back to the States. I don't know if he meant to always be flying in the day of Media Day or if he was supposed to get in on Saturday or Sunday or whatever, based on the fact that the last 2 days, the last 48 hours for him have been this crazy. I would imagine that, no, the plan was never for him to arrive Monday morning, right? He probably wanted to get here earlier. Again, we could choose to believe whatever we want. It is a little funny that, of course, it's Jimmy Butler. Like, of all the players to be late for Media Day because of mechanical issues with the plane, of course it's Jimmy Butler. Like, if you had to bet on one of them, it would have been Jimmy.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but hey, he showed up. He was there a little bit past 2:00 doing the media. He was very patient with his time, answered every single question, and did all the photos and did everything that he had to do. I saw him interacting with teammates and stuff, kind of, when he was out of the scrum and all that kind of stuff. So overall, and I think you and I were talking about this during Media Day, even before Jimmy Butler got there, good vibes, like all the way around. Even just for Media Day, it felt like this team was, after a long summer, after the first round exit last year, was just really looking forward to playing some basketball again. And that Erik Spoelstra in particular was very hungry. And I think I didn't get that hunger sense from Jimmy Butler, but he was so exhausted from a travel day, and anybody who's had long travel days would understand that. But the fact that he's just there for business we have no idea how this season is going to play out. But if you ask Erik Spoelstra and Pat Riley, what's the best case scenario for Media Day for Jimmy Butler? Other than the fact that he was a few hours late, this would have been it. Like, that media session is exactly what they wanted to hear.
It wasn't like an overwhelming giddiness or anything like that. Like, when you say that this was a good Media Day, I that's not the vibe I got necessarily, but it was positive. Like, a lot of if we are healthy, we still have a firm belief in this team. And it sounds kind of like you're just, kind of speaking it into existence or something like that. But
That's what Erik Spoelstra literally said he was trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I came across with, like, this was actually a firm belief from 1 to 0, like everybody in between. Like, there is a firm belief in what this team can do if they're healthy. And so, again, to your point, who knows how the season plays out? But for now, they are all not rocked by whatever changes the New York Knicks make, whatever changes the Boston Celtics have made, or any other teams, or Philadelphia. They were all asked about it, and the common sense was just, you know what? We're going to still go. We have to play the game between the lines, etc.
The sense I got was everybody understood, even outside of Jimmy Butler, like, nobody was totally healthy last year, right? Nobody played up to their potential last year. Like, this is a prove-it year for everybody on that team. And whether or not that ends up being a championship or not, they realize, like, it doesn't matter if the Knicks and the 76ers and these teams made all these changes, because we just didn't play up to our potential last year. And so before we even get a chance to worry about all that stuff, we got to play better, period, because we weren't good enough last year before all those changes. One last thing on Jimmy Butler. He was asked about not getting that contract extension. He said, quote, "Guess I got to hoop, got to prove that I am a major part of winning, and rightfully so. I've done it before, and this is no different. This is going to be a great year for myself. This is going to be a great year for the group of guys we have. That will take care of itself whenever that time comes." End quote. Again, company line. Good.
Yeah.
Sometimes boring's better. Right?
Surprising, but good.
Surprising, but good. Spo did drop a hint, surprisingly enough, about who 4 of the 5 starters will be this season. We'll talk about that and what it means for the Miami Heat after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, if you're waiting for the start of Monday night game versus the Miami Dolphins and Tennessee Titans, well, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, or you want to go check out other stats or anything like that, well, you can do it, or you can view live play-by-play, and there's so much more, and it's all on the same page where you place your bets, and you get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. And all you have to do is place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com just to get started. Make sure to go visit FanDuel.com today. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Best way to support the show. Leave a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Let us know in the comments section what you thought about Jimmy Butler's Media Day session. Were you disappointed that he didn't show up in costume? Or were you relieved, perhaps, with a fresh sort of all-business take there? Some quick notes before we get to Erik Spoelstra dropping hints about the starting lineup. Everybody but Josh Richardson is going to be fully available, full participant for training camp, which is great news, obviously, besides Josh, who's still recovering from the shoulder injury that ended his season last year. He will be a partial participant, but he's not ready. He's not cleared for full contact yet. I guess the expectation is that he will be soon, maybe perhaps even by the preseason, but we'll see on that. But yeah, Terry Rozier, good to go. He said he was good to go. Erik Spoelstra said he's good to go. I have no reason to expect that he isn't going to be good to go after the weird sort of neck injury thing with him. And then obviously everybody else is ready to go, Nikola Jovic included. We also had a chance to sit down with a number of Heat players: Nikola Jovic, Duncan Robinson, Khalil Ware, Josh Christopher, Nasir Little, Pelle Larsson. Apologies if I'm forgetting anybody in there. And all of those interviews are going to be posted on YouTube. They'll also be available in your podcast feed. So
good conversations. Any takeaways from those? Like, I mean, there was a lot there, and we want people to kind of just go through them because it really does add like a dimension to these players. Like, I mean, media day can be pretty repetitive, even for the young guys that have never been through it before. But I thought a lot of those conversations really spoke a lot to who the players were. I came across impressed with Nasir Little, Josh Christopher. Like, I mean, just the way they talked and the things they talked about.
Duncan Robinson's really always a home run. Like, we talk to him every media day. It was nice to kind of catch up and get to know Pelle Larsson a little bit. There's 2 of these players, not to give it away, 2 of these players might start a band because
we made it happen.
A couple of new guys who picked up some musical instruments. So there's just a lot of great stuff there. Khalil Ware is watching The Sopranos, so we talked about that, which is always good. Let's get to Erik Spoelstra. He was. I don't know if that he was asked about the starting lineup. I guess that's not important. But what I found interesting about it is that he went out of his way to sort of not give us a headline and then inadvertently gave us a headline. So here's the quote from Erik Spoelstra. He said, wrong quote. If you're looking on the graphic on YouTube, my fault. Erik Spoelstra, here's the quote. "I'm not going to give you headlines about the starting lineup or rotation, but I am intentional about seeing what Terry Rozier, Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, and Jimmy Butler look like. We have to see that group, how that group can complement each other and lift this whole group up." So he didn't say that he was going to start Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam. But assuming that Jimmy and Bam are definitely starting, and when Erik Spoelstra says he wants to see as much of those guys together as possible, obviously the best way to do that is to start them with the other 2 guys. So I am taking that as, okay, 4 of the 5 starters are settled, at least for now. Terry Rozier, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And then that 5th starting spot is going to be open for competition. So what did you make of Erik Spoelstra kind of just, hey, these are our 4 starters?
Yeah.
4 of our 5 starters.
I mean, you could read into that, those are our top 4 players and that you want to see our top 4 players play together because unfortunately, obviously, they did not get a lot of opportunity for that last season. So, I mean, you can read into it however you like to. But again, I feel like the more natural tendency is just I'm naming my top 4 players because 4 of those guys are going to start, and I just have to find a 5th one to complement them.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. Like, you want to be able to see. He talked about it. I think this was that response regarding those 4 players was following another question where he was asked about the offense and wanting to change things up, et cetera. So I think there's definitely an understanding that this offense needs to be juiced up, that it needs to be something needs to be done differently and dramatically in order for this team to be much more successful than it has been. They cannot limp their way to 95-point wins or losses. That just cannot be the case anymore. So in order for that to change, we're looking at a dynamic group here, and he went out of his way to point out, that he believes in what Terry Rozier can bring to the table. And so when he includes him among that group of 4, I think it is likely that he's indicating these 4 are going to start. But that could also change because, look at what he said specifically. I want to see what this group looks like. And if this group looks terrible over camp, guess what? Well, I guess one of those players are going to start. And I know that there's something that Tyler said later on that kind of suggests that. But again, I would go with my gut instinct and say those 4 are probably starters. And then it's about finding that 5th complementary starter. Yeah. We still think it's probably Nikola Jovic, but.
We'll talk about the 5th option here in a second, but reporters, like when we were in these scrums talking with Bam or Jimmy or Terry or Ty or whoever it was like, hey, these 4 guys, like, what do you guys feel like you can do? Erik Spoelstra basically went as far as to call you guys the starters, and nobody disputed it. And maybe that means nothing. Maybe they're like, oh, cool, I'm a starter. Like, why would I dispute that? But I thought it was, look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Those are the 4 best players on the team. You start your 4 best players, maybe. Maybe it's just that simple. To your point also, we barely saw them together last year. They played 10 games together, those 4, last year. That's nothing. 118 total minutes. They were outscored by 2 total points in those 118 minutes, which is nothing. Like, it's such a small sample, you could take absolutely nothing away from it. The fact that they were outscored by 2 points, even if they had outscored their opponent by 1,000,000 points, and maybe if it was 1,000,000, that you could probably take something away. But there's nothing to take away from a 10-game sample size. So you've got to see more of what it is that they could do together. You couple that with some of the comments that Erik Spoelstra did make about the offense, and here's the quote that I wanted to get to before also. He says, quote, "There has to be some sophistication, some added new innovation to bring out the best in everybody. We have the offensive talent everywhere you look. It should be a group that brings out a higher level." You look at this personnel. Let's just take those 4. We'll start there. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, all-stars. Tyler Rozier, a 20-point-per-game scorer. Tyler Herro, a 20-point-per-game scorer. Lights out, knockdown three-point shooter. There is no reason why this team, if those 4 guys are healthy and playing together, there's enough talent there. Whether or not they complement each other enough, there's enough talent there that they should not be bottom 10 in offense. And when I see this and some of the comments that Bam Adebayo made about taking more threes this year and all these things, and I think that this team is going to be predicated more on ball movement, less of some of that low post stuff that we saw last year, whether it was Bam facilitating out of the mid-range or the low post or Jimmy Butler trying to do it. It's going to be, nope, everybody eats, drive and kick, create some space, maybe not quite 5 out the way that the Celtics were, but a little bit more perimeter oriented the way they were more in those bubble years with those dribble handoffs and those kinds of things, but a lot more like, hey, everybody, it's on everybody to drive, kick, find the next open shot, keep doing it. And we've seen versions of Spoelstra offenses that have looked like that, and I think we might be getting back to that with the amount of offensive talent, guys who can put the ball on the ground, shoot, pass, make quick decisions. I think they're going to lean more into that.
Don't get anyone's hopes up. I mean, because I agree with you. Like, I feel like it's going to be a different. I feel like last season kind of proved one thing, is that regardless of who's out there wearing a Heat uniform, somehow, and I know we kind of picked at the number a little bit over the course of the offseason, but somehow you can still fall ass backwards if you're a Heat team into a top 10 defense, and that's fine. That's enough. But it's all about trying to find new ways of generating offense a lot more easily than they have over the last couple of seasons. And so when you read into it, I think you're right. I think they're going to look to do some things more dynamically. I am so hesitant to say, oh yeah, this is likely to happen, because
and by the way, we have no idea, but that's what they'll at least try to do. We don't know if it'll work, but I think that if you look at, okay, how does the scheme change?
Though. But it should.
Yes, they sucked last year on offense.
No, not even that the bar is so low. I'm just talking from a personnel perspective. Like, you've got enough players on this force. Yeah, you should be able to generate offense much more comfortably than you have over the last couple of seasons. So I don't know what that's going to entail. I don't know if that means changes to the lineup or not, but whatever. We'll get into that once we actually see these games being played. But for now, based on this personnel, and I think that's the consensus from everybody, especially from Spoelstra, saying that, you know what, we have enough. And, you know, it kind of speaks to our our Heat Media Day predictions from last week. I think we came pretty close on a lot of those and trying to figure out, and maybe not exact verbiage, but still pretty good in terms of like the overall themes and everything else like that. But Spo just seems so optimistic about this group. And maybe that's just him being the company man that he is. But I really feel like he looks at this group, and as long as this group stays healthy, there is a firm belief that this group can accomplish great things. And I kind of walk out of there thinking, you know what, I want to see it too, because it certainly couldn't be any worse than it was last year.
I have been getting more and more optimistic, as not just from Media Day, but over the last couple of weeks. And that might just be me getting excited for the new season and trying to find a way to be excited. But look, there is at least, I know everybody, they're running it back there again. They're running it back again. 10 games and 118 minutes with your best 4 players on the court. There's going to be something new here, right? Like this is going to be a new experience for Heat fans in some way, shape, and maybe it is literally just Terry Rozier being dropped in. But based on what I think this team wants to try to do, it probably should look a little bit different than it has over the last few years. At least they want it to look a little bit different, and it needs to look different because they were really bad on offense, and they can't be this bad on offense. If you were bottom 10 in offense, I don't care what you do. You're not winning the championship. I don't care what kind of defense you have. It's not happening.
Right.
So they got to get better. In terms of who that fifth starter is and who might fit in with some of this more spacing, ball movement type of offense, I got a couple of names that come to mind. We'll talk about that. Plus, Tyler Herro made a complete 180 in terms of how he's talking about his role on the team. We'll tell you what he said after this on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Well, they've got a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, whether it's to catch a ball game, to catch a concert, catch a comedy show, whether you're in town or traveling, whatever you're looking for, you'll find it at Gametime, because they filter out all of the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on the great seats that you want, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. You can use the app whenever you want. It's so convenient. So many different features that make getting the tickets you want easier than ever before. They've got their all-in pricing. It's a great feature. You know, sometimes you go to another site, you're looking for a ticket, wham, at the end line, you think you're getting away with a good price. Next thing you know, come the hidden fees. You don't have to worry about that. With Gametime, you know exactly what you're paying right up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. They've got their lowest price guarantee. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a different price, and there's seat views feature so that you can see exactly where you're going to be sitting. If it's a new venue you've never been to, you know exactly where you're going to be, so there's no obstructions. So many different things to love about Gametime, and right now you can just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. The terms do apply, but create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. If you're new to us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast app. So in terms of who that fifth starter is going to be, I have 4 names that come to mind, 2 that I think have maybe the best chances at getting that 4th spot, based on if Erik Spoelstra wants 5 guys out there who can make decisions with the ball, dribble, shoot, pass, those things. Of the 4 names, there's 4 guys that I think have a chance at it in training camp. Jaime Jaquez Jr., Nikola Jovic, Haywood Highsmith, Kel'el Ware. Of that 4, I really think Jaime and Nico have the best chance, because those are the guys who fit this offensive scheme that, reading between the lines, feels like where this team is going. Kel'el, obviously not at this point in his career. Haywood Highsmith isn't really a guy who you want dribbling more than once on any possession, right? He's more of a 3-and-D kind of catch and shoot from the corner, play great defense, but not necessarily a guy who's dynamic with the ball in his hands. Nico obviously can make those passes. Jaime Jaquez could do a lot of different things offensively. So when you hear what we heard at Media Day, you're trying to think of who this 5th starter is going to be. Have you changed your mind about anything? Who do you think that 5th starter might be?
No idea. I don't think we got anything that indicates. I don't think anybody's been told. I think it's going to be a competition.
I agree with that.
I think it's about finding the right complement. I think in order for it to be Jaime, I think his 3-point shooting has to show an incredible amount of improvement. Like I know Rozier, I know Hero, obviously they can shoot the ball. Jimmy and Bam, I think of them as still a work in progress, and we have yet to see whether or not Bam is actually going to be able to incorporate that 3-point shot consistently or not. And certainly not to the degree where it's going to be a huge swing factor, at least not right away. At least I don't see it that way. And so you're going to rely on somebody as that fifth starter who's going to be able to put up shots. Now, Haywood does have a case because he did shoot almost 40% last season. Jaime's numbers, unfortunately, were a little bit lower. Nico, I think he's just the guy. Like, not only is it a matter of, having more size out there. We talked to him about wanting to use that size more effectively around the rim, et cetera. I still think he's more likely to emerge as a starter just because I think he's a better fit and a better complement. Last year, it was basically by default that he got that position because half the roster was hurt. I don't think that's the case. Obviously not starting the season, but I just think of him in terms of a skill set. Like, you want what he brings to the table. He's a catch and shoot kind of guy. He can ignite the offense. He's taller. He can pull down rebounds, make plays for others. I'd still like Jaime and his energy coming off the bench, especially because I also view him almost primarily as a guy who could just go in there and replace Jimmy and still bring a lot of what Jimmy does to the table in terms of creation and everything else like that. And you just don't count on his shot, but guess what? He gets to the rim pretty easily. He gets to the line a lot. Those are skills that I don't think many other players in this roster have other than Jimmy and Bam. And so you want him to be able to bring that to your second unit. So I still see him as being, I would go so far as to say he might be one of the leading candidates for Sixth Man of the Year.
If he ends up coming off the bench, right?
Which is how I see it.
I like that. I like that take. I like that prediction. To me, it's those two guys. I think in training camp, it's going to be one of Nico or Jaime battling it out. And this obviously could change over the course of the regular season. But in terms of who starts on opening night in that fifth spot, I think it's one of those guys. Let's move on to Tyler Herro, who might have been the most surprising of everybody that we heard from at Media Day. We know Tyler Herro, right? I'm a starter in this league. I'm up there with Luka Doncic and Trae Young. I mean, I should be considered. I have the capabilities to be one of the top scorers in this league. All these things, right? And I love that. I love the bravado. I love the confidence. I love all of that. Struck a very different tone during his media session with reporters today. He was asked again, if you're going to come off the bench, how would you feel about that? What kind of role do you anticipate you're going to have this year? And Tyler Herro got right ahead of it and said, whatever they say I am. We're going to let the best coach in the league decide, and one of the best GMs ever to decide. He was talking about Pat Riley. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win a championship. I found my jaw almost hit the floor after his media session. He went on to say about how he's going to work off the ball more this year, that he's been really working on that stuff, all these things. I mean, if you polled Heat Twitter, if you asked Heat Twitter to just like AI generate the perfect Tyler Herro press conference, it would have been this one. It would have been exactly what Tyler Herro said today. I mean, like I said, my jaw was on the floor when this thing was all over, and yet it was exactly what he needed to say. What did you think about it?
Yeah, really interesting, and he's so again muted, just like what I said about Jimmy. Like, this is a very muted version of Tyler.
Business.
And last season, very much. Last season it was like, oh, I'm a starter. Obviously, I've earned this, etc. Like a lot of bravado, as you mentioned.
A little FU attitude after being clearly included in the Damian Lillard trade stuff. I mean, he's like, I have no agenda coming into the season. Last year, I was thinking about All-Star, 25 a game, all these things. I don't care how many points I score. I just want to play my role. I'm like, who is this person? I know he shaved his head, but are we sure this is the same Tyler Herro?
So I'm choosing to take this as these guys are all very disappointed by last season. And I think they all have a singular purpose. Like, one of the things that we kept talking about is everybody on the same page. And Spo went out of his way to say, when me, Jimmy, and Bam are in sync, good things happen, etc. Like, he was very detailed in that answer, but it felt like that kind of trickled down through everybody here. It wasn't a lot of laughs. There were some here and there, but it was all very businesslike in their approach to today and their responses and everything else like that. So I think everybody here has that singular purpose of wanting to prove that they can win and win at a high level. and that they're all willing to make whatever sacrifices are necessary, including Tyler Herro. So if you're somebody who has criticized Tyler in the past, and maybe again some of it was warranted, you can't pick at what he said today and look at that as any kind of fodder for why you don't like Tyler. Like he said exactly what you want to hear from a player who's very young, but also looking to continue to build and contribute to winning. And I think that's a huge takeaway from all this, is that everybody really wants to just be on the same page and win. And Tyler is no different in that regard. So I was impressed by his calm demeanor, which is very again,
calm. I mean,
not something you associate with Tyler Herro.
We were talking about what we wanted to see out of media day and training camp and things like this last week, and we said, Tyler Herro, you're going into your 6th season. He's not the young guy anymore with potential. I think when you're this far into your career, you just kind of are who you are. Like, you don't see players like, if Tyler Herro is going to take a leap into one of the best 10 scorers in the NBA, that would be almost unprecedented at this stage of his career, regardless of how young he is. Like, he's just been in the league for this long. The fact that he's embracing that is huge. If he's working off the ball more, that means more catch and shoot, more 3-pointers. I think there's going to be an opportunity for him to attack off the dribble. He said, another big note, he went from 189 pounds to 201 pounds. I don't know about you. He looked
not buying it. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, okay. No, I mean, I'm buying it. There's a little bit more weight there. It's okay. We've heard muscle watch from Tyler a couple of years now. I want to see it. I don't care what that number is. And obsessing over
it
the
means
number
nothing about in terms of how you play, but it does help, right? And he wanted to add that muscle in terms of durability. He was sitting there, man. His arms look different, dude. Like his triceps were popping. Like, that's not the Tyler Herro from before. Like, and so he at least has that. Can he apply it? Very fair point. We'll see. But if this guy is taking more catch and shoot attempts, he's more efficient. He's averaging 10 3-pointers a game at minimum. That's what he should be at. I think he should be taking 12 threes a game with how good he is at it. He could crack an all-star team. And how ironic would that be if the one year he said, I don't even care about points, I don't care about the all-star, and he embraced this off-ball role and all these things, he sort of became that play. He finally kind of made an all-star team. That if he's doing that, I think that could be in his wheelhouse. Now, I don't want to now put those expectations on him, where I've had an issue with how Heat fans have thrust unrealistic expectations upon Tyler Herro over the last few years. But the point being is that this is exactly the kind of game he has to play. It's exactly what people who, like, when we're analyzing this game, this team, we're like, this, if he just does the Klay Thompson thing, then everything would just transform for this guy. And it feels like he's embracing that. And I think that's potentially a huge development for this team. There is so much more to get into here in terms of media day. Training camp starts on Tuesday. The Heat are leaving for the Bahamas tonight, Monday night. So we will have we're not going to the Bahamas, but we will be covering media day from here. We'll have plenty on that. We have our interviews from media day coming out throughout the week, so be on the lookout for that. We'll also talk a little bit more about Tyler Herro's game, the starting five, everything else that we hear out of training camp. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.